welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going on a pretty fascinating journey today. We're going to be exploring the metaverse, like how it actually came to be.
Yeah, and we're looking at it through someone's personal story, someone who's been there, like watching it all unfold, and even taking part in how it's grown.
And for you listening, like I get it. You want to know the whole story quickly, but also like get the full picture.
Right. And we're going to dive deep into that today. So the basis of our deep dive today, it's the intro to a book all about the fashion metaverse.
Fashion Metaverse. Okay.
Yeah, but hold on. We're not going to like jump straight into virtual fashion shows or analyze digital clothes just yet.
Right.
But, the author's own story, their experiences, it's like a really cool way to grasp this whole metaverse idea.
Yeah, like getting a behind-the-scenes look at this massive tech thing, right?
Exactly.
So what we're aiming for today is to understand what led up to this, like the foundation of the metaverse. And then we're going to look at what personally got the author so into it.
Yeah, like what made them tick.
Exactly. So, it's understanding the why before we jump into all the details of fashion in virtual worlds, which, by the way, we might explore later on.
Sounds good.
So the author kicks things off by talking about 2021. They were like super fascinated by the metaverse around then, and it's linked to something pretty major that happened.
Yeah, it's amazing how a big company rebranding itself can suddenly make everyone pay attention to an idea that's been around for ages. Like, boom, it's on the global stage. The author is specifically talking about when Facebook changed its name to Meta back in 2021.
Oh, yeah, that was huge. It was everywhere.
It was. And for a lot of people, it was their first time hearing the word metaverse. Like, what is that?
It was inescapable.
It was like, you couldn't avoid it.
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that the author, after doing some digging, realized that this wasn't some brand new invention,
Right.
The core ideas behind the metaverse had been around for quite a while. It's like hearing a totally new song and then finding out the artist had been messing around with those melodies for years.
It's like, wait, I've heard this before.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you think a company rebranding itself had such a powerful effect on, like, everyone? What made people go, whoa, this is important now?
I think it's when a company like Facebook, a big player, makes a change that big, it makes people think, okay, this is serious. Like, it gives the whole concept legitimacy, it says this isn't just some crazy idea. We believe it's the future. And then, of course, the media jumps on it. Other companies start talking about it, and suddenly everyone's interested.
Yeah, it's like a chain reaction.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to the author, their first actual experience with, like, stepping into a virtual world, that was actually a few years before the whole Meta thing happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like back in 2018, they tried out the Oculus Quest for the first time, the one that's now the Meta Quest. And there's this other interesting connection here. The author knew someone close to them who was really into AR and VR.
AR and VR, like augmented reality and virtual reality.
Yep, that's it. And this person was studying it for their master's degree, but get this, at the London College of Fashion.
Wow, that's a cool mix. Fashion and tech coming together way back then.
It really is. And to make it even cooler, that same person now runs a digital fashion company called Neo Marché. And guess what?
What?
The author says their company is going to be a case study in the book later on.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
So for anyone listening who's like, okay, cool, metaverse, but what can you actually do with it,
Yeah.
especially with fashion?
Yeah.
That's like a little sneak peek of some exciting stuff to come.
Definitely. It shows how all this stuff that starts in like university labs can actually turn into real businesses.
And shape the future, right?
Exactly. So to really get the author's like deep interest in the metaverse, they take us even further back in time, like way back to their first experiences with technology.
Yeah, I like this part. They start with the Sony Walkman and cassette tapes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a serious blast from the past for many people.
Oh, yeah. It takes you right back. Like you can almost smell that old cassette tape smell. But it shows how far we've come in terms of how we listen to music and stuff.
Right, like from holding this clunky Walkman to streaming anything instantly on your phone.
It's crazy how much has changed. Then they talk about their first time using the internet. It was 1999 in a cyber cafe in Delhi.
A cyber cafe, those were the days.
Remember those? And they had to pay for an hour just to set up a read-mail account.
Just to get an email address.
Yep. It's wild to think about how limited internet access was back then. Like nowadays, it's everywhere.
It's like water or electricity now. We just expect it.
We do. And then the author talks about getting their first cell phone in 2004. a Motorola T190.
Motorola, classic.
It was. That was another big step, right? Like
Yeah.
moving towards having your own personal connection to the internet and communication.
Always being connected, yeah. And then, fast forward to 2022, they're using the Meta Quest 2, fully immersed in virtual reality.
It's a natural progression, right? They were always curious about new technology and willing to try it out. And even looking ahead, they want to get the Apple Vision Pro, but they're realistic about it, talking about how expensive it is and how it's not easy to get in India right now.
It's cool how they keep it real. And it shows they're still looking forward to what's next.
Definitely. And it's not just VR. They were early adopters of all sorts of big platforms. Like, remember Orkut?
Orkut, oh wow, that takes me back.
And Wikipedia, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. They were using all of them pretty much from the start.
It's like they have a knack for spotting the things that are going to change how we use the internet.
It's impressive, right? Like they could see the potential of these platforms before they became as huge as they are now.
Yeah. But thinking about all that, being early to all these big things, did the author ever have any regrets about missing out on opportunities?
Yeah, they actually mention a couple. One is not paying enough attention to Bitcoin early on. I think a lot of people can relate to that. It was in the news, but it wasn't always clear how big it was going to become.
Yeah, like, oh, another internet thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how hard it is to spot which new technologies are actually going to stick around and change the world.
Right. It's easy to look back and go, I should have invested in that.
Hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yeah, definitely. What was the other regret?
The author also wishes they had used platforms like Instagram and YouTube more to become a content creator, back when those platforms were just starting out.
Yeah, that's such a big thing now. So many people have built careers and businesses by creating content on those platforms.
It's true. It's like a whole new economy.
And speaking of Bitcoin and the creator economy, the author actually says they're going to dive deeper into those in later chapters of their book.
Which means we get to learn more about that too, if we keep reading.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. It sounds like they see a connection between these missed opportunities in the past and what's happening with the metaverse and Web 3.0 now.
Web 3.0.
It's basically this idea of the internet becoming more decentralized, where users have more control and ownership. And a lot of people think it's connected to how virtual worlds are developing.
Okay, that makes sense.
So even with those regrets, there's something the author doesn't regret, and that's trying to teach people about the metaverse.
Oh, yeah, they talk about that. They were like actively educating people, their students, colleagues, friends, even their family about the metaverse over the past few years.
It shows how passionate they are about it, right? Like
Yeah.
they really wanted to spread the word and get people thinking about it.
Yeah, totally. And they mentioned LinkedIn as being really important for making connections and having discussions about especially Web 3.0, like through podcasts and those virtual meetings everyone's doing now.
It highlights the importance of community, right? Like
Sure.
sharing what you know and learning from others. It helps everyone understand these new technologies better.
And that brings us to the author's main focus, fashion in the metaverse.
Exactly. So after all that, the author finally gets to what really made them want to explore the metaverse, fashion. They point out how in many metaverse experiences, one of the first things you do is create your own avatar.
Your digital self.
Yeah, and a big part of that is choosing what your avatar wears, like clothes, accessories, all that stuff.
It's like dressing up in a video game, right? But even more personal.
It is, and what's interesting is how important fashion becomes in these virtual worlds. It's a way to express yourself, show your personality.
So it's still fashion, even though it's digital.
Absolutely, and this connects really well with the author's background. They've worked in fashion education for over a decade, focusing on marketing and management.
So they really know the fashion world inside and out.
They do.
I wonder how that experience, understanding real-world fashion, influences how they see digital fashion.
That's a great question. It probably gives them a unique perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually what led them to start their PhD, focusing on the fashion metaverse.
They realized there wasn't a really good comprehensive resource out there specifically about fashion in the metaverse. Like there was information, but it was all over the place.
It's like they found a bunch of puzzle pieces scattered everywhere and decided to put them together.
That's a good way to put it. And that's what their book is all about.
So what's the main goal of the book?
They want it to be a guide to the fashion metaverse, covering everything, how it started, how it's growing, and what it could become in the future.
Like a one-stop shop for understanding fashion in virtual worlds.
Exactly. And they're not just writing for fashion people. They want anyone who's curious about fashion and technology to be able to read it.
That's cool. They're making it accessible to a wide audience.
They are. So, wrapping up our deep dive into the intro of this book, you should now have a good idea of how the author got into the metaverse.
It's not just a random interest, right? It's built on years of trying out new technologies and a deep understanding of the fashion world.
Right. And what I really like is how they use their own story to explain it, like talking about their experiences with different platforms and even their regrets.
Yeah, it makes it relatable. You can see how they got to where they are now.
Exactly. And I think you, the listener, should now understand better what led to all the excitement about virtual worlds and what they could do, especially for fashion.
For sure. So here's something to think about. How did your first experiences with technology shape how you see and use digital stuff today? Especially things like the metaverse, which is still changing all the time.
That's a good question. And what future technology do you think might be the next big thing for you? The one that really grabs your attention?
Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.